All right, so today we are diving into something pretty wild.
Okay.
We're going to be breaking down this YouTube video.
Oh, cool.
And get this, the title is My Money is My Pussy.
Whoa. Okay, that's definitely an attention-grabbing title.
Yeah, you kind of have to click on that, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you have to know more,
That's so.
what is this about?
Yeah, exactly.
Money is like, what?
Right.
It's bold, it's provocative.
Yeah.
You know, it makes you wonder, what are they even going to talk about?
Exactly. And here's the thing. It's not just some like obscure video. It's actually from these pretty well-known comedians.
Okay.
And they have a pretty popular YouTube channel.
Interesting.
So it's not like this super like
Yeah.
underground thing or whatever.
Right, so it's like more mainstream.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's interesting, like, these guys who you would think have like a platform and an image to maintain
Right.
are willing to put this kind of statement out there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and it's a really raw conversation, too.
I see.
Like, it's just them talking.
Oh,
Like,
no.
they're friends.
Oh, wow. So it's like a glimpse into like
Yeah.
an unfiltered conversation.
Exactly. So it's really fascinating to see, like, how men talk about this stuff when they think maybe nobody's listening. You
Yeah,
know?
like when the cameras are off or so they think.
Exactly.
Okay.
So let's get into it.
Yeah.
The whole thing kind of starts with this one comedian talking about his experience in Brazil. And he basically says that, like, being surrounded by all these women, it made him feel like his money was, like, his key to intimacy.
Interesting.
And he's the one that actually says the line, "My money is my pussy."
Okay, so that's a pretty blunt way to put it.
It is.
I mean, what do you think he means by that?
It's interesting, right? Because on the surface, it's like he's equating his financial power with sexual currency.
Yeah, it seems very transactional.
Yeah.
It's like he's saying that money can buy you access. Money can buy you desirability.
Right. And it's interesting because not all of the guys in the video agree with him.
Oh, really?
Yeah. One of the other guys in particular is like really put off by this whole idea.
Okay.
He even talks about how much he hates fake, blank, and how he'd much rather have just like a genuine connection.
That's interesting. So there's like different perspectives even within this group of friends.
Yeah.
Like they're not all on the same page about this.
And I think that's what makes it so fascinating, right? Yeah.
Because it's not like this monolithic view of like how men think about sex and relationships. Clearly there's a spectrum.
Yeah, definitely a spectrum.
Yeah.
So you have one guy who's like, money's the way to go.
Right.
And then another guy who's like, no, I want the real deal.
The real deal.
Yeah.
And it's almost like one of them sees a price tag on something that should be priceless.
Right.
Like it's this fundamental difference in how they view intimacy.
Okay, interesting.
And this actually leads to a really interesting moment because the money talks guy actually lets his guard down a little bit.
Oh, really? What happens?
He actually admits to like wanting something more.
Okay.
He even says that he wants to be treated with complete love.
Wow. So underneath all of that, there's a desire for something deeper. It's like this really vulnerable moment that you don't really expect.
Yeah, it seems like there's this tension there between wanting to appear a certain way and then also having these deeper longings.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it makes you wonder if beneath all that posturing, there's this universal desire for connection, even if it's masked by like a more detached approach.
Right. It's like maybe we all want that deep connection.
Right.
Even if we don't always admit it.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And the thing is, this isn't just like a conversation between these three guys.
Right.
It actually like sparked this whole debate in the comments section.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like people were going back and forth about their own experiences.
What were they saying?
Well, some people were saying that like, this is just how guys talk.
Locker room talk.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like no big deal.
Right.
But then other people were like, no, this is actually kind of messed up.
You're like, this is a little disturbing. To hear these guys talking about women this way.
Exactly, and that it's like symptomatic of like a bigger problem.
Right, like these societal expectations that can really warp how men see women in relationships.
Exactly.
So it's kind of like this microcosm of this larger conversation about, you know, sex and intimacy and how men and women relate to each other.
Totally, and then there's also this whole other layer of like, is it a good thing that they're being so open about it?
Oh, that's an interesting question.
Or is that part of the problem?
Right, because on one hand, You could say, like, it's good that they're being so candid.
Right.
Maybe this is a sign of progress.
Vulnerable, even.
Yeah.
Right.
Because they're, like, breaking down these norms that say men can't talk about their emotions or, be open about their experiences.
It's like challenging that stereotype of men needing to be, like, stoic and emotionless.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, you have to wonder, like, is this actually reinforcing the very thing that we're trying to move away from?
It's like this weird double-edged sword.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Because if we say, oh, it's fine to talk about women this way, even if it's like in a joking way, is that actually normalizing these kind of like
attitude, behaviors?
Yeah, behaviors and attitude.
And then it's like, well, then we're not really progressing.
Exactly.
Right.
It's a vicious cycle.
It is. Yeah. And it makes it hard to know, like, where do you draw the line?
Exactly. And I think that's what makes this conversation so important.
Right.
Because it's not about censoring anyone.
Right.
It's about using it as a jumping off point.
Exactly.
To think critically about, okay, what are the values? What are the beliefs that are shaping these guys' perspectives?
Love that.
And how much of that is influenced by, just societal norms.
Right.
Personal experiences.
And it's
even the platform itself.
Oh, yeah. That's a whole other.
Right. Because when you're on YouTube, there's this pressure to be provocative, to get those views.
To get those clicks.
Right, to get those clicks. Engagement, that's the name of the game.
Right. Yeah.
So how much of this is just them playing to the camera versus actually expressing
their real beliefs,
their true selves?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a really interesting dynamic.
It's complex.
It is complex.
There's a lot of layers to it.
There are.
It's not just a simple issue.
And it makes you think about, our own online behavior.
Oh, absolutely.
Like how much of what we present online is authentic versus,
it's performative.
Performative, yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
It's like we're all performing to some extent.
Right.
I think it's just the nature of the beast.
Totally. And it's interesting to think about it in the context of this conversation.
Right, because these guys aren't just random dudes on the internet.
Exactly. They have a platform.
They have an audience.
People listen to them.
Yeah, they're influencers, whether they want to be or not.
Exactly. They have influence.
Yeah. Right. So what they say has weight.
It does.
And I think that's kind of a scary thought.
It is.
Right? Because if they're not being mindful of what they're putting out there, it could have real consequences.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's a lot of responsibility.
It is.
To have that kind of platform.
And it's interesting because even though the conversation starts out being about sex and money and all this stuff, it actually, I think, reveals something deeper about just this fundamental human need for connection.
Okay, I like that.
It's like it all comes back to that desire for connection.
Right? It does. Yeah, it's like this weird paradox.
Yeah.
You have this guy who's like talking about how his money made him feel powerful.
Right.
Desirable.
Yeah.
Surrounded by women.
In Brazil.
In Brazil, right. He's like, my money is my pussy.
Yeah. And it's like, that's obviously a super, like, crude way to put it.
It's very provocative.
It is. But even with that being said.
Right.
What does that tell us?
Yeah, like, what is that really saying? About how he views intimacy.
Right.
Like, is it just a transaction to him?
Yeah. Is it just something you can buy?
Like, it makes you think about, like, our own lives.
Okay.
Right? Like, how much of our interactions are transactional?
That's true. Even in, like, digital age, right?
Totally. Think about social media.
It's all transactions.
It's all about, like...
likes and follows.
Likes, follows, subscribers.
Right. It's like you're constantly trying to accumulate
currency, social currency.
Right.
And, even if it's not money, it's like we're still operating in this, like, transactional mindset.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of what makes this conversation so unsettling.
Yeah.
Because it's like, is this what we've become?
Right. Are we all just seeking transactions?
Even if it's not, like, explicitly transactional.
Right.
Like this guy's saying, my money is my pussy.
Right.
It's like, are we still approaching relationships with this kind of like...
what can I get out of this?
Yeah, what's in it for me kind of attitude?
And I think it's really interesting because, like you said, even the guy who's like, Mr. Moneybags over here.
Right, my money is my pussy.
Right. He still admits to, like, wanting that connection.
He wants to be treated with love.
He says it.
He says it right.
Yeah.
So it's like...
what does that mean?
Like, maybe he's not getting that.
Maybe.
From these transactions.
And that's kind of heartbreaking in a way.
It is. It is, because it's like he's going about it.
It's like
in a way that's ultimately
empty.
Yeah.
It's not fulfilling.
Right. It makes you wonder, like, what is the cost?
What is the cost of that?
Of living that way.
Yeah.
Of seeking validation, connection through transactions.
Right.
Like, what are we giving up?
What are we giving up?
When we do that.
Right. And I think that's something that's really important for all of us to think about.
It is.
Whether we're
engaging
in like literally transactional sex or just like
–
approaching our relationships in a transactional way.
In a transactional way, right. Like, are we being present?
Are we?
Are we being vulnerable?
Are we allowing ourselves to be vulnerable?
To experience the full range of human emotion.
To really connect.
Connect with other human beings.
On a deeper level.
In a meaningful way.
Yes. And I think that's something that this video really...
It really does. Yeah.
Highlight.
It brings it to the forefront.
Even though it starts out with this crazy title.
Provocative.
It really does make you think about some pretty profound things.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good reminder that sometimes, the things that we think are just silly,
superficial
entertainment can actually reveal a lot more.
There's often more than meets the eye.
There is.
Yeah. So...
Good conversation.
Yeah, thanks for breaking this down with me today. This was
fascinating. A wild one.
It was a wild ride.
It was a wild ride.
But important.
But important.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.